Hello, everyone. Welcome to Millennials and Email, How to Engage Email Natives. I am Laura Sullivan, Creative Director at Brightwave, and I'm very honored to be here as your moderator today for the webinar. We're going to look at some original research that we did here at Brightwave about millennials and email, and we're really just going to have a conversation with some of the top minds out there in the digital marketing world. So without further ado, let's get going. So our agenda today, as I mentioned, we're going to do some intros. We're going to talk a little bit about Brightwave and our hosts, and then we're going to give you a quick overview of our original research. And then we really want to spend the bulk of our time in this webinar discussing the research and some more questions and issues that research spawned. So hopefully we'll take about 45 minutes to get through all of those questions. That will leave us about 5 to 10 minutes at the end to have some live Q&A time. So first, wanted to let you know who we are at Brightwave. We are a best-of-breed email ECRM agency. We've been around for 13 years, and we've been incredibly laser-focused on email. We're the only agency that has been ranked in the Inc. 5000 list of fastest-growing private companies for 5 years in a row, and we're really, really proud of that fact. And most recently, we were very honored to be ranked by the Relevancy Group, which puts out an email agency buyer's guide, as really the top independent email agency, the best of the best. We do a lot of cool stuff like this webinar. We're really proud of our blog, our white papers, and all of our other thought leadership in the email space. At Brightwave, we're a full-service agency, so we have expertise in-house to solve a lot of email problems, and really that boils down to strategy, creative, technology, and campaign management. And I wanted to today, before we dive in and introduce our hosts, I wanted to give you a very, very special sneak peek. This is the first time that we are announcing this information, but we at Brightwave are going to be hosting a really cool, hopefully very unique and cutting-edge conference. This is the first time we're announcing this and putting this information out into the world. It will be on March 30th next year, and the name will be EIQ, the Intelligent Email Gathering. And really this conference is going to be all about email marketing trends and innovations, and really just a celebration overall of the power of permission and performance in email. Really excited to tell you about it today and for you guys to be the first to hear about it. And we do have a website that we put together that you can go to. It's down at the bottom of the page, eiqgathering.com. If you want to sign up to get our updates so we can tell you more as we plan this event. So enough about us. I really want to get to introducing you to our incredible lineup of panelists today. So first up in Indianapolis, we have Kayla Garrison. She leads product marketing efforts for the Oracle Marketing Cloud. You may have heard of it before. It's a little enterprise marketing platform with 380,000 customers, 100 of the Fortune 100 companies, which is no small feat. And there at Oracle Marketing Cloud, she's really focused on cross-channel orchestration and mobile marketing solutions. So we're very, very honored to have Kayla's insights and thoughts today. Next we have John Thies from Denver, coming straight from Denver. He is the CEO and co-founder of Email on Acid, which is a tool that we use here at Brightwave every day. It's a really powerful tool that lets email marketers preview how their emails look in popular email clients and, of course, on mobile devices. He has spent his whole career really helping marketers send perfect emails and helping us do that as well. So we welcome John, and we welcome his thoughts and opinions as well. And last of our three presenters, we have Jordan Cohen. He's coming to us from New York City, Chief Marketing Officer for Fluent, which is a really awesome industry-leading customer acquisition platform. It's really an awesome company. They use data science and real-time consumer interactions to serve up personalized ads. He actually has conducted some interesting millennial research recently, so we'll have a lot of unique opinions and insights to share with us. And last but not least, this is me. I'm your moderator today, Creative Director here at Brightwave in Atlanta, Georgia. I oversee the creative product here, working with a team of copywriters and interactive designers to really push innovation in the inbox. And in a past life, I was a journalist, so I was very excited to do this original research and to dig in and write long and go deep when writing our Millennials white paper. So we will have a Q&A at the end, so feel free to use your WebEx tool to ask questions throughout. We're going to gather up those questions, and we're going to address them at the end. But if you have some profound takeaways or you just want to keep the conversation going with any of us, please feel free to tweet at us now or afterwards. And I do want to point out at the very bottom of the screen, we have a little hashtag there. It's hashtag #emailnatives. And we're going to get into a little bit more of what an email native is. But feel free to tweet any of your insights using that hashtag throughout our webinar today. So first, I just want to give you a tiny overview of our original research that we did at Brightwave, and we're going to put up a lot of stats and graphics that really came from that research. So the spur for this whole conversation was millennials. We know that they're a very hyped up demographic in our world as email marketers, and that they're huge. These are the babies of the boomers, so they're roughly 50 million people that are born after 1980. And we know that if they don't make up the majority of our client list right now, they're going to very, very soon. But they're kind of misunderstood. There's a lot of information swirling out there about who this generation is. Are they the type of people that want brands to communicate with them in a genuine way, or do they just love taking selfies? Are they these informed activist consumers, or do they really just prefer emails with a bunch of gifts? And so we wanted to really dig deeper into that, and we used a pretty cool tool called Google Consumer Surveys. And we were able to survey people all over the country. We weighted it by gender and by region of the country, and we surveyed over 1,500, basically up into the number to get statistical significance with each of our questions. And what we found, a lot of it confirmed things that we already thought about millennials and email, and some of it really did surprise us. And one thing that we really came to through this research is the idea that millennials are digital natives. They're that first generation for which digital communication is just a thing that is. It's not a thing to learn. And that also means that they're email natives. So they don't really remember a time when they didn't have email to communicate with their school, with their community, and of course with brands that they love. So that's really how we like to think about this generation in the email world and how we came up with our nifty hashtag. So let's kick off the conversation. And the first set of questions that I really want to tackle are foundational. We know a lot of people, especially outside of our industry, would say, millennials and email, seriously? And the answer is yeah, seriously. And so first we want to talk about why email. First question that we asked is, of the brands that you like and you do business with, how do you want them to get in touch? And millennials chose email over in-person interactions, social media, text messages, phone calls, online chats. In fact, email overtook the next closest contender by 10 points. So this really confirmed that we were on to something and that we needed to go a little bit deeper. And one of the surprising things about even that first question is the idea that is kind of stuck in everyone's head that millennials are definitely a social generation. And it seems like it's true that they're still all about sharing. They want to share that ridiculously good-looking meal they're about to eat on Instagram, or they want to share their kid taking their first step on Facebook on their social networks. But we found that they didn't really want brands as much in their friend space. I'll toss this out as the first question, and maybe this is a good question for you, John, at Email on Acid. Are millennials still the social generation? What do you think?
Absolutely. They definitely are. I mean, so based on your survey results and then other surveys that have been done, they say around 73% of all millennials still prefer to talk to brands and companies through email. And, because social media can get overcrowded, with things that, things that they might not really necessarily be interested in. But that's the great thing about email is that you opt into it. And then you can read email and stuff like that on your own terms. And we all know that where people read email, it's some random place, bathrooms and all that stuff, and while they're driving. And so email is everywhere. And they are essentially the connected generation. And so they have their mobile devices, they have all this stuff that they access wherever they go. And, with email, we look at like Friendster, MySpace, and Facebook, they were all created during this generation. And, email is a part of that. Email is a channel that those companies use to drive traffic to those platforms. And email is here to stay, and it's sticking. And it's clear based on your research that you guys have done.
Absolutely. Totally. And I want to go to the next slide as well, just to further on this, on what you were saying in that social conversation. This is a little bit of research that Fluent did, and Jordan, I think you were heavily involved in this research about millennials and social, and this is just one point that I thought was a little bit interesting. So 36% of younger millennials are on Facebook, 50% of older millennials. 34% of younger millennials are on Instagram, 25% of older. So it seems like Facebook is trending up, Facebook is trending down, and Instagram is trending up for this generation. What does that tell us as digital marketers, and what does that tell us for email in particular? Jordan?
Yeah, first of all credit goes to my amazing team for conducting the research. I just work here. But that aside, our research is really interesting. These were showing the splits between millennials. And everybody on the line, please forgive my voice as well. I'm recovering from a cold, but I'm going to try to do good by you guys today. Because I think it was important for us to split out the fact that millennials is an incredibly broad category, and people who are 18 to 24 behave a lot differently than those 24 to 25 or 25 to 34. So there were marked differences there. But then also we looked at millennials as an entire group versus non-millennials. We saw even bigger disparities. What the research really revealed is that this is a very social generation. Millennials are social, but the biggest kind of threat that their social activity poses isn't necessarily to email. It's actually more to Facebook. They're just far more likely to say that they go to YouTube every day. They use Instagram every day. They use Snapchat every day than non-millennials, whereas people 35 and older, when it comes to their social media usage, it's really very heavily dominant in favor of Facebook. Now, in terms of the original thesis about the impact of email, agree with everything that John said. I just add that our research also found that millennials actually call promotional emails the most influential channel when it comes to impacting their purchase decisions, more so than ads on social media, more so than ads on news and entertainment websites, more than text messages. So it's very much about what you said originally, Laura, where email is their very personal space, that they are comfortable with communicating with brands, doing commercial interactions. Social media, on the other hand, is something that they're very engaged with, but not really for commerce. It's really about friends and family, and they don't really want to be bothered by advertisers in the same way that they're willing to embrace and communicate with marketers over the email channel.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely echoes what we found about, this kind of sacred friend space that you don't want to give up to brands. But, maybe your promotions tab in Gmail is a perfectly okay place for that to be, and you can go check it whenever you want to. And I was very funny to hear you say that Facebook is for an older generation, because I feel like I see my parents on Facebook more than I see my friends these days. Really.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I got on Snapchat for like 3 weeks, and the millennials in my team started yelling at me and asking me not to get off of it as soon as possible and not to.
Oh no. Well, actually, this brings up an interesting topic that I know John and I had chatted about before about just all of these new social networks and what do we do with them as email marketers, WhatsApp and Snapchat. Do any of you panelists have any interesting ways to integrate these kind of newfangled social networks with the email channel?
I don't necessarily have any new ways. I think it's just it's a little bit more difficult, and I think it's just new. And I don't think we've really figured out the best way to interact with them on those, because a lot of them, like WhatsApp and WeChat and all that, you kind of have to have a mobile number for that. It's not necessarily something that you can just go and get. It's actually much more permission-based. So as marketers, and maybe Jordan, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're still trying to figure out that landscape and figuring out the best way to interact with our customers and stuff, and get them to interact with our brand through those channels. And I know that some people do it with support. They're starting to do it more with, hey, if you have a support problem or you need a question about something, you can use those applications. But other than that, I haven't really heard much. I don't know if you guys have.
Yeah, sure. No, it's interesting. We've been doing a lot of work in the political space, especially since July of last year. I talk to reporters a lot about how has the landscape changed for political marketing, and the reality is, and this is just my opinion, of course, but when you look at what the candidates did, and candidates, after all, are brands, just highly visible ones. They've been very focused on email for driving fundraising, very focused on good old-fashioned TV for getting the message out. But when it comes to other channels, you have not heard much about Clinton, Trump, or any of the candidates that were in the primaries successfully using tools like Snapchat or YouTube. They did little experiments, but none really took hold in terms of having a major impact in driving fundraising or get out the vote messaging. And again, I'm just using that as a very timely, relevant example, but it applies just as equally in the commercial world. Everybody knows it's out there. Millennials are clearly on these platforms. It's just they're not necessarily naturally used for marketing.
Sure. It's a really interesting, just evolving space that we'll all be keeping our eyes on. I want to move on to the next question too. After we sort of established, like, okay, yes, millennials love email, we really wanted to get to the why. So we asked, I prefer that brands communicate with me by email because, and it was really about being able to check their email when they want to, getting to choose how often brands get in touch, and then that idea of permission. So, no surprise here, but it definitely confirms what we feel and believe, that, email is great because it's all about permission and it's all about place. And so something that this research told me, as I dug into it, really two things. One is that we don't really need to be obsessed with our time of day testing, because, millennials are just going to check their email when they want to. And then second, this, I think, speaks volumes to the rise of mobile and the idea that people are going to be checking their email in all different places and at all different times. And, your competition is not just the inbox, it's really everything out there in the world. So I want to toss the next question to Kayla. Should we change up our mobile strategy, knowing that millennials are out there and they're checking their email everywhere?
Sure. Yeah, I think, maybe marketers don't need to overhaul their entire mobile strategy, but what you said, in an era where mobile devices are so pervasive, especially for the millennials that are more likely to check their email on a smartphone than I think any other demographic, it's important that it's a mobile-first strategy and that these mobile-first consumers are, taken into account, because they are making up a majority of the folks that are interacting on mobile. I've seen stats as high as 88% of millennials are checking their email on a smartphone than on their desktop. And so I think more specifically, a couple of things need to be taken into consideration for that strategy. Responsive design being a must, and I think we might talk about that a little bit later on. Getting call to actions across very quickly for the millennial and in a format that's just like a clean, captivating image. They're flicking through the email, they're moving fast. So we want to make sure that in the email they can clearly see what the action is from the brand. And then tying that mobile email experience to a mobile app experience or a mobile web experience to ensure brand consistency further perpetuates within the customer lifecycle, so that millennial customers feel that they have a personal connection with the brand. Because even on that mobile device, if they're not feeling that connection, they've got their mobile email. Unsubscribing from a mobile email is a fairly quick and thoughtless process for the millennial, and they will do it if they don't feel like the brand is connecting with them and is personalizing that experience.
Absolutely, and that's something that we definitely found in our research as well. You're just one thumb flick away from unsubscribe if your email doesn't look great on mobile. Those are awesome best practices for us all to keep in mind. This does kind of bring us to the next question. If email is the place for one-to-one communication, with this audience that is growing and really taking over our lists, is omni-channel still the right approach? And Kayla, I know you do a lot of work in this arena, so I don't know if you want to speak to this one as well.
Yeah, no, yes, I think emphatically yes. Millennials want a seamless experience across email, web, mobile web, even in the store, and they really demand it. I think a lot of times millennials are often given a lot of negative characteristics, right? They're all about instant gratification. They're all about me. But I think this is a place where marketers need to capitalize, right? They need to ensure that they're using all of the data that they have at their disposal to deliver that personalized and customized experience across channel. And email operating in a siloed channel will never win, especially for millennials. And we see this all the time with our customers where we're working hand in hand with an email marketer, and let's just say it's in the retail industry, and they're putting together an email campaign for a specific summer sale. And they're doing everything right. They're targeting me as a customer. I get the email in the morning. When I typically check my email, the images in the email are dynamic based on maybe my past purchase history, so I get a clear call to action of maybe a woman in jeans hiking, right? So I click through, but when I get to the website, it all becomes generic because the website is operating in a different, separate silo. And the homepage is a sale, that's showcasing a man wearing, dress shorts on a sailboat, right? Because if that experience is fragmented and the marketer isn't leveraging the data and sharing that across marketing silos to deliver an omni-channel experience, the customer loses out. And the millennial customers who have, I think it's $200 billion in buying power, are going to be turned off if they don't, if their experience is fragmented with the brand.
Absolutely. That is a great lesson for us all to keep in mind. Jordan, I know that you also recently came out with a study, which I believe was entitled The Omnichannel Advantage, and I wonder if that points to similar things.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did a study, The Omnichannel Advantage. This is looking at the American population as a whole. The findings were really striking. Consumers who say that they had been reached by their favorite retailer in 10 or more channels, and we asked about TV, print, online, mobile notifications, email newsletters, mobile shopping apps, Facebook, video, Instagram, Twitter, a couple more. Those who said they interacted with their favorite retailer in 10 or more channels, 62% of them say that they shopped at their favorite retailer's brick-and-mortar stores once a week or more. That number drops to 41% when you look at those who are touched by 9 or fewer channels. And then when it came to online purchases, that number is 49% in terms of those who are touched by 10 or more channels, and drops to 25% when it comes to 9 or fewer. And this is shopping from these favorite retailers once a week or more. So the omni-channel advantage is very real, and it's what Kayla was saying about this omni-channel orchestration, but there's also just an element of what we call the ubiquity effect, just surrounding the consumer at every touch point. just has this undeniable impact on brand awareness that pays dividends when it comes to actually driving them to make purchases, whether in-store or on your website. So applies, again, kind of broadly, but certainly to millennials as well.
Absolutely. Great. These were all really great insights, and I think we've been dancing around a lot of questions that we'll have in the next section here, which is really talking about personalization. And, you know, email is a great channel where we can segment and we can personalize and we can really have a one-to-one experience. And this has never been more important than now with this growing millennial audience, as we found. So, you know, just taking a look at some of the research, the good news is that, you know, once they've given a brand permission to interact, millennials, they really want great content. And, you know, we specifically asked them, you know, what makes them more likely to click. And, of course, the number one type of content that they mentioned was a promotion or deal. And I'm really, you know, not surprised by that. But the other three types of content were really interesting to me. So the next ones were timely, relevant information, so something that's relevant to me, unique content, again, something that's kind of relevant to me, and then personalized recommendations. So these really all come down to personalization and that one-to-one communication. So really want to toss this out to everyone because, you know, we've all heard of, you know, hello, first name, but I think we're ready to move on past that. And I wondered what, you know, your tactics are for just some fresh new ways to personalize. And John, I know at Email and Acid you see emails all day, every day. So I wondered if you have any fresh new ideas you could share.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're spot on about how we have to get past like just using the first name. I think with technology these days, we in the data that we're gathering, and companies out there that are gathering data like Fluent and stuff like that, we have more information at our disposal. And so getting away from hello Bob or hello John or whoever, we need to get more across that. And some really cool things that I've seen like brands do is kind of really look at, you know, they might seem kind of generic, but there's actually some compelling interest in that. And Kaylee mentioned it earlier about like, you know, gender, there's geographic location, age is a big one, like who are you, what age are they a millennial, are they Gen Xer? And then, you know, what their job is, their interests, and looking at, you know, transactional information as well and previous engagements that they've had with your brand. And so some really good ones that I've seen personally that have come through is kind of like, you know, JetBlue, they do like these anniversary emails. You know, it's kind of the quick, hey, recognition, hey, this is your anniversary, welcome, thank you for being a part of this. You know, and then like Spotify, they do emails with, you know, top listeners, or they'll send you emails about, you know, kind of the things that you've been listening to and give you recommendations. You know, that's kind of like the past behavior. And I think two companies that do a great job at past behavior is Netflix and Amazon. Netflix will send you recommendations about, based on your previous experience, previous behaviors, what you've watched. You know, they'll send you out emails about new releases coming out that you might have interest in. And as you start to use their platform more, they're starting to gather this data, and they're starting to really understand and put a personal footprint on you, like a data footprint on who you are, what you do, and what you interact with. And they're starting to utilize that with an email. I think that brands really need to start leveraging that to make it personal, to make it, you know, and what we were talking about was omni-channel, you know, making it not just the email, but then when you go to the website, interact with them initially about what their previous behaviors are. And, you know, the last example I have here is, and I don't, you know, we can't see any of these visuals, but LinkedIn does a good job with this too. And they do it based on, you know, your job title and your company size to send you maybe job recommendations. For, you know, I don't know if they know you're looking, but they're just saying, hey, guess what? Here's some new jobs that are out there that you might have interest based on the information that we have, and the trends and the people that you follow and who you're connected with in your industry.
Absolutely. Those LinkedIn emails always get me just news about people that I know. and this idea of proximity. And I'm going to be the most interested in those people who are the most connected to me. I think they do an excellent job. Something else comes to mind just based on what you were saying, John, which is Spotify. And they've done some excellent personalized emails. One of them was Your Year in Music. It was actually connected to a landing page where they gave you some stats about everything that you listened to in the last year. And it was just such a great personalized experience. Wow, I think this also leads us to the next question. And you can't do any of this great segmentation or personalization without a little help, because we all don't have the ability to, make a million emails for all the million people on our list. We're going to have to use some technology. And Kayla, I know this is definitely your arena. So how do we really harness technology to speak to each customer individually?
Yeah, I think with Millennials, really the name of the game is about being adaptive. And adaptive is a term that I like to use because it goes beyond being predictive. It goes beyond using past purchase history and actions to dictate the next steps for the customer, but it's more about being nimble and providing that one-to-one personalization. So I think technology can really help in two ways. The first is adaptive customer journeys, right? The concept of the customer journey is oftentimes positioned as the be-all, end-all, and honestly, it's sometimes an overly linear way of thinking about our customers and the life cycle they encounter, because the customer's path has so many forks in the road, and especially the millennials' path as they vacillate, like Jordan said, across 10 or more different channels. It's not enough to just respond, but we need to be able to adapt very, very quickly. And most traditional campaign tools lay out linear paths for the customers to move across email and other channels, but as soon as that millennial deviates from that path, their engagement stops because the tools aren't fast enough to keep up, right, and continue to adapt. So with more sophisticated technology that leverages big data, leverages real-time decisioning, the customer can actually dictate the best next step, which is something the marketer couldn't do without technology. And I think the second is testing. And because millennials are always on and always have access to email, like you said, Laura, it's less about the time of day testing and more to do with content itself, right? It's sophisticated subject line testing, call to action testing, the overall experience that we're giving to that millennial, and technology just makes it easier, right? It decreases the heavy lifting on the part of the marketer with tools like Winner Select that automatically chooses the best email, or next best offer, that can take into consideration, the things that this customer needs. So I think that, to your point, to be sophisticated and to be adaptive and to be nimble, technology is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting, because especially in spaces like retail and travel, the marketer is not going to be able to keep up with the quantity of sophisticated and high-quality personalized emails that they need to get out.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that was one of my little phrases that I took away from the research as well. It's not when, but what, and serving that great content. We got to rely on this technology, and it's an exciting time where we really have these things at our fingertips and at our disposal. Thank you so much. That was great. I want to move on. I know we're, we don't have too much time left. We have two different, kind of topics that we want to cover. And one of them is just frequency. And one of the big takeaways that we got from our research, which, again, is one of those things that's like a confirmation of what you already believe. And this headline is maybe a little snarky, but it's like, newsflash, stop blasting. Because the number one reason we found that millennials unsubscribe is, of course, that they receive emails too often. And, the frequency is more important than a lot of other things. It's a lot more important than being relevant or looking great. So we found that, frequency, it really does matter. And, we know that millennials have that I want what I want when I want it mindset, and that they don't want to be blasted. So this can be really complicated, though. Serving up things that are all about millennials, personal preferences, it can be hard. It can be hard to manage on the back end. So I wondered, and maybe Jordan, you would like to take a stab at this first, but what are the ways that you let the customers opt down and choose their own preferences in email?
Yeah, sure. So but before I say anything here, there's always an element in every just consumer survey of confirmation bias. So you said it was confirming your own beliefs, that what people would say. They're kind of confirming their own beliefs as well when they're responding to surveys and saying that this is the reason why I opt out the most. But the default disposition of people is inertia. The biggest risk that you have is actually just mailing to people relentlessly and then tuning you out. So I'd say that really instead of asking customers to opt down, the bigger thing is just getting it right on the front end and sending email at a cadence that makes sense. And the reality is, going back to the political space, you look at the Clinton campaign, they're probably hitting you up 3 times a day right now. People aren't opting out en masse because the timing of what they're sending and the relevancy behind it is relevant. So it's not that the volume would be turning them off, it would be the content itself. That said, we're big proponents of giving people options. Notice and consent is a time-cherished principle in the direct and digital marketing industry. Nowhere more so than an email, starting with the point of opt-in. That's probably the best place to capture that frequency cadence is at the moment of opt-in, asking people what their preferences are when it comes to both the content that they're going to receive in the channel as well as how often they'd like to be communicated with, because let's be honest, they're not thinking about your email program as much as you are, and to go and ask them at a later date, come and futz with your preferences, very few are going to do that, especially in an age where we're seeing so much online consumption take place on mobile, especially amongst the millennial generation. We're only 25% of them are saying that most of their online consumption is on traditional desktop, and on the small screen, and if you think about expediency and speed, and we just have to be honest and accept that they're not going to probably go in and spend too much time managing their preferences with each and every retailer, travel company, financial services company that they do business with. So it really is about getting as much self-declared preference information as soon as possible, up funnel.
Yeah, something interesting that I heard you saying was, it's about sort of quality and relevancy and more than it is about quantity. And one of the challenges that we have is, convincing our customers and, the brands that we do business with to send quality over quantity sometimes. Do you have any sort of tactics for that, sort of convincing people that, quality is more important?
I was going to let the other speakers jump in.
Sure.
But yeah,
and I mean, this might be a good question for sort of John, too, at Email on Asset, because I know he sees a lot of emails every day, and he has some thoughts.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's this whole big debate about, right now at least, and Jordan, where you and I live at a lot of conferences and stuff about is sending more better, and I think you need to test it. I can't say that for us. Like for us, it's a little bit different because for what we do at EOA, we're more thought leadership. And so the more information that we can get out there, the better. But we're not selling something. We're giving people information that they opted in for, that they want to see. So it's a little bit different for us. So maybe for our strategy, it might be different than retail. And so I think you really have to, every subscriber list is different. So you really have to kind of understand that and really do some A/B testing and really figure out what is the right cadence and what do people want. I mean, that's how I look at it. I'm not going to say yes, sending more is better or sending less is better. I think it kind of just depends. I think a lot of what we're talking about with email subscribers and all that, every list is different. And so what might be good for one is terrible for another. And so A/B testing is what would be the strategy that I would take on that.
Absolutely. That's a great point. It's something that we, are always trying to remember. And, sometimes it can be annoying, but it's like every audience is different, every list is different, and, the gold standard is to find out for yourself. Excellent. Well, we have just one more section that I want to jump into before we open this up for questions. And we are collecting your questions out there, so please do keep them coming. We're happy to answer questions about really any of the topics that we discussed, or anything about email and millennials in general. So please keep them coming. The last section, I think, is obviously of paramount importance, but we're going to talk about design. And you can't really talk about design today without talking about mobile. So I wanted to share with you, another question that we asked, because it's not just enough to have a customer hand over their email address or even open up your really carefully strategized, personalized email. We really want people to take action. And so we asked them directly, what makes them more likely to interact with an email? And of course, 41% said it's got to look good on my phone, or it's out. And the other categories that they answered were also very interesting. So 27.7% said great photography. Almost 20% said animation, something eye-catching that's going to grab my attention. And then 11% said, some kind of multimedia content, some kind of video or other thing that I can interact with. And, this brings up, in my mind, an important question about mobile design. And, there's a lot of talk about mobile-friendly design, which, here's a little graphic on the left-hand side that kind of shows you what a mobile-friendly design might look like. It's got those touch-friendly links and buttons, a clear left-aligned CTA, increased font sizes and CTA sizes, usually a one-column layout. And then on the right-hand side, you have a responsive design. And this, of course, is using media queries to kind of turn on and off different things based on rules. So it's going to look different for every screen size. We definitely default to responsive whenever humanly possible here at Brightwave, but I wanted to throw it out to the larger group and just ask the question, in 2016, should every email be responsive? I think, John might be an interesting first one to chime in on this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question, especially now with, the update to Gmail about how they're actually supporting responsiveness. Because before a month ago, you couldn't do responsive within Gmail. So there are mobile apps and all that stuff that wouldn't show it. And so I think it's a really good question, because my suggestion is not to go run for the hills and change all your templates over to responsive. I think there's a need for each one still. So you have those, you have your fluid, scalable, fluid hybrid, and all these other things. And I think again, it kind of just depends on what email you're sending out and what content. Now, maybe if you're sending out a campaign to all of your subscribers that have, a lot of images and all that stuff, okay, maybe then that's responsive. But if you're talking like a transactional email, I really don't necessarily know if going responsive is going the whole way, because there's still clients out there that don't support the media query responsiveness way. And so if you really want to kind of gather all of those, all of your subscribers, I suggest using both. And there's a way that you can mix and match the responsiveness with the fluid hybrid, so that no matter where the subscriber is opening it, you get that mobile-friendly look. And so for here at EOA, a lot of our campaigns that we send out to the entire list has that fluid responsiveness to it. But then our transactional emails, like receipts and all the stuff that we send out, we use this straight fluid hybrid. Because there's really, we're not really trying to hide and show different stuff on that. What it is what it is.
Sure.
I don't know what anyone else is doing, you guys.
If I could be a little bit controversial, especially if your list is majority millennial, I wonder if we could even just go to a mobile-first design paradigm. When you look at millennials, the vast majority are saying that they're looking at some, most, or all of their, or spending most or all of their time online, inclusive of using email on smartphones. When you look at millennial women, more than 80% say that. So I think responsive design is great. It's a luxury that not every marketer necessarily has, and if you had to make a binary choice of designing for the desktop or mobile, and you just wanted to just do something clean and easy, just assume that the vast majority of your recipients are going to be looking at your emails these days on their mobile devices.
Absolutely, that's a great point, and kind of a paradigm, shift that I think we all have to just wrap our heads around a little bit more. And something that we do here at Brightwave is even if we do have the luxury to invest more time in a responsive design, we design the mobile version first, so that we're really thinking about it from a user experience on the mobile device first. The desktop is the afterthought, which I think definitely is a shift in the way of thinking about things. It's just an interesting point. We can go to the next question if nobody else has anything to add. I wanted to get to a couple of questions that were just things that we hear all the time, and certainly when it relates to millennials, just kind of about gimmicks that people ask us all the time. So one thing is, should I try to get their attention with a GIF? And this comes up with millennials all the time. I'm trying to speak to this younger generation. Should I use a cool cat GIF? And, I just want to toss this out for the larger group and ask in general, when do you use gimmicks like a GIF to speak to this audience?
From my perspective, like what I've seen, and I've seen some really good ones, and a lot of this, so what a lot of I see coming across are a lot of retail, and so I don't see a lot of B2B doing GIFs. That to me doesn't really make a lot of sense, but if you're doing retail, like I've seen someone with the Loft where they have a little box shaking, like a little shake, like, hey, click here to open your surprise. I've seen American Apparel where they do some really cool things with their animated GIFs, and so I think it grabs their attention. And I think the biggest impact for millennials is that, I think just subscribers in general, they're not used to seeing movement within email. And I think that's something that kind of grabs their attention, and like your surveys show that they like that. They like the GIFs, they like videos, and there's things that you can do with animated GIFs to kind of get them to play on videos, because videos are supported in some email clients, not all of them, but you can use animated GIFs, like kind of fallbacks, to show some animation that, hey, there is a video here, click on this to entice them to do something.
Absolutely. And so just to speak to another gimmick, something question that we get asked a lot is, should I use emoji in my subject lines? And, we know that emoji can be a means of communication for some people via text, but is it okay for our brands? So should we do it or should we not do it?
I don't mean it to be taking all these questions, so others, please feel free to chime in. I'd love to know your thoughts. But like what we've seen here is like this one, again, it kind of depends. It really depends on your subscriber list. Again, B2B probably doesn't make much sense. But if you're retail, there's a lot of people using this in retail and the consumer side of things. But one thing you got to really be aware of is that you don't want to overdo it. You don't want things to get stale. You don't want people to say, oh, they just sent me another emoji, right? It's got to make sense and it's got to fit the topic. So if you're using that smiley face or excited face or whatever that is on something that's not as exciting, people are going to disengage with that. They're going to be like, oh, that doesn't really make sense. And so you really just want to make sure that you use it sparingly and that there is a good effect to it. So like the research that I've seen is like it increases unique open rates by 45%. Now again, is that across the board for everyone? Yeah, so it kind of depends. And AppBoy recently did a survey and they found that last year 145 million emails, like retail emails, used emojis. This year, 814 million. That's just this year, so that's a 460% increase, which is insane. So it must be effective. That's the way I put that.
Wow, very interesting. Well, we do have just one last question that I want to get to, because this is a really hot topic in my world, just in terms of design and email. So kinetic design is the idea that you have interactivity right in the inbox, which, hey, maybe that's a given in web design, but in email, this is a very big deal. It's very powerful, and with those Gmail changes that we were talking about earlier, it's even more powerful because we have more clients that support interactivity in the inbox. So this could mean carousels that you can interact with, hover over states, even forms right in the inbox. Given the answers that we had to this millennial survey that they want to interact with something in the inbox, the question that I have, and Kayla, maybe you'll want to be the first person to chime in here, is does kinetic design work?
Yeah, so I think personally, kinetic email and kinetic design is a more sophisticated way to get customers' attention. So going beyond GIFs and beyond emojis, this is a way that they can interact, that they can do something a little bit different with their email. And our customers have had pretty great success with kinetic email, and especially in the millennial age group, because, like you said, kinetic email allows them to actually interact with the content, right? They can tap, they can swipe, they can submit, right? And just boost their engagement. And so when they're always on and always on their phone, they might pull up an email from a retailer, but if they're pulling up an email from a retailer that allows them to interact right there before potentially making, a next step, they get more immersed in that mobile experience. And kinetic email just seems like a really great way to deliver on that without going over the top and maybe missing the mark with a GIF or an emoji.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would just have to, so my 2 cents in this is, I believe, everything you said is exactly right. And I'd just like to add to that, too, kinetic is also kind of a way to enhance the experience with the email with someone that can see a better, that has a, for example, iPhone, right? It supports a lot of HTML, CSS3 stuff that we can do on websites now, but Outlook, the desktop client, doesn't. And so why have those, kind of the concept is why have those people on the iPhone not have a better experience just because some subscribers are looking at it in Outlook? So kinetic is also a way to enhance that experience based on where your subscriber is opening that email.
Absolutely, and I think that idea of progressive enhancement is a really powerful one in the design world too, just that you're serving up something that's going to enhance the experience when you can, but if you can't, there's a fallback that's still going to be a really solid user experience. Excellent. Well, this is actually perfect timing. So we have just 5 minutes left, and I have a ton of questions here that have been asked, and I've tried to pull out about 5 of them that I think we can all tackle. Really smart questions. Thank you all for those. One of them I'll toss out first. So Amy Downey, who is listening to this, says, I'm the director of a nonprofit. Have you found that millennials react in one way or another to nonprofits? How can we approach them? I don't know if anyone would like to jump in and tackle that question about nonprofits. I can get started and speak to that for Amy as well. So, in our experience, there is kind of this activist nature, and something that we were really successful with in email with nonprofits is allowing them to share that they gave back or that they did something nice. And something really cool that we've done is allowed for social feeds right in the inbox. So if you have a call to share with maybe a hashtag that's like, I gave back, and then allowing that live feed to be in the inbox really gives them that instant recognition. So just one idea for a way to engage them in the inbox. Another question, which I'll throw out to you, and this may be opening a can of worms, but someone asked, how many email accounts does a typical millennial have?
That is a great question. I don't know, like, I don't know statistics, maybe Jordan does, but I know personally, I'm not a millennial, but I have like 6 accounts
Me too.
that I use, and so maybe it's because I'm in email, but I want to keep that kind of, for me, I sign up for things, like when I sign up for stuff on the personal side, I'll use the same account, like a Hotmail account, and I know whatever comes into that is probably something, you know, not spammy, but just something that wants me to buy something or do something like that. So I keep them separate. I don't know, Jordan, if you know that with any of your research or not.
Yeah, I'm hitting myself right now. Our next research report coming out next month is the inbox report, which is a once-a-year study that we do about just consumers' perceptions of email marketing and how they manage their inboxes. I got the preliminary results last week, and I was taken aback by. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the vast majority of people have 2 email addresses or fewer, and that is so much different than just a few years ago. Definitely different than your experience, John. But then again, you're definitely not the typical email user or observer. But it's interesting. If you look back 10 years ago, email churn was one of the biggest challenges facing the industry, right? People, it's incredible, right? 10 years ago, AOL was the largest consumer domain by a mile. Actually, not just a mile, like a million miles. And now it represents a fraction of most lists, right?
Yeah.
Gmail's far and away the dominant player. People are registering, primary addresses. They're using them when they're signing up for email offers. They're using them when they're registering for Facebook accounts, for Snapchat accounts, for Instagram accounts. So there's a great deal of stability in today's landscape that didn't exist just a few days ago. Again, our numbers, we're looking at the entire population, but I'm sure that it holds just as true for millennials, which has positives ranging from not having to worry too much about email churn and having valid live addresses on your email list, but also in this day and age to execute custom audience buys and reach consumers deterministically off of their email addresses in Facebook, through Google, customer match on search and Gmail and YouTube, through display, and even we're talking about now addressable television. All of that is being made possible by the stability and far fewer email addresses that today's consumers currently hold.
Sure. Something very, very important to keep in mind with all this. So we just have time for one more question that I want to get to, which again, maybe stirring the pot a little bit. But this is a question from Michael Hayden, and he asks, in your experience with purchased email or mobile data, what's your experience? Despite the presumption of some level of permission, are purchase lists still spamming?
Oh. And that's funny. Absolutely. Like, I look at that, like, because email is a permission-based thing. And when you talk about, it's kind of interesting that this question was brought up, because we're actually doing a webinar in a couple of weeks on deliverability with the folks at 250OK and Inbox Pros. And this is going to be one of the topics of conversation about how email is permission-based. And, yeah, email is like, you can go buy a list, but to do it right, you're not going to get any value from it because people are just going to opt out, and then your deliverability rates are going to go down. And they're not going to engage. Like, I mean, you can go buy a CD of email addresses for $20 on eBay, but that's not going to get you anything. It might get you a bigger list size, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're not going to get the conversions that you expect, and you're going to have a much bigger impact if you do it slowly and organically.
Absolutely.
That's my 2 cents.
That definitely goes back to something that we believe here at Brightway was, if someone opts out of your list and raises their hand and says that they don't want to be on it anymore, that can be a good thing because they're sort of taking themselves out of the equation. We only want the most engaged people to remain. Excellent. Well, we are pretty much out of time here, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I've really learned a lot from these very smart people, and it's really been an honor to just put this research in front of you guys and have this conversation. We will be following up with everyone, so if you're in this webinar, you will be hearing from us. And in the meantime, feel free to tweet at us and use email natives. We hope to keep the conversation going. And just one last thing, wanted to remind you guys again about this kind of sneak peek that we're giving you. Really nobody else has heard about it yet, but if you want to keep updated on our pretty awesome email event that we have coming up, just go to EIQ Gathering and enter your email address, and we'll keep you updated. Thank you so much. Thank you to the panelists, and have a great day.